Today you can call me Lawrence the Comic Hunter. What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence, your host over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and like always, welcome back to the show. Today we're on a comic hunt. You guys got it. I was bored over the weekend, so I decided to go ahead and hit up 3 comic shops in my area hunting for comics. But before we get started in the video, like always, I remind you guys, if you're not a current sub of the channel, you guys are definitely missing out on stuff like this. But no joke, guys, we're almost at 8,000 subs, and you guys know once we get there, I'm giving away a slew of things, including the first appearance of the Winter Soldier. With that said, do me a solid, smash that like button for me. We're trying to get this channel up to 10,000 subs by the end of the year. Now let's go fucking hunting. So I started off my day over at Zapp Comics, my favorite LCS. You guys know they always have some great back issues, some awesome wall books, and a ton of everything else. We're talking cards, we're talking Pokemon, we're talking trade paperbacks, everything you guys can imagine. So I started off hitting out the X-Men bin to see what key issues I could find, not just wall books. And I gotta tell you, the prices are actually fantastic on some of these minor keys. You guys know I'm a huge collector of X-Men, but they had a lot of great stuff for cheap. So you guys know me. After that, I had to head to the Amazing Spider-Man bin to see if they had any cool covers or books that I wanted to add more copies of to my collection. If you guys don't know, I already have ASM 1 through 301, so I'm just looking to add better copies, covers that I love, stuff like that. And Zapp always has some great stuff at some awesome prices. I love that cover. Now, I thought I filmed myself going through the Spawn bins because if you guys don't know, the Spawn run had a lot of issues that had some low print runs, so I was looking for them. But not only that, early Todd McFarlane art on Spawn was some of the best art that I had ever seen from the 1990s. Absolutely love Todd McFarlane's artwork, so if I could pick up some of them for cheap, I would always do that. Of course, who can withstand Spider-Man punching through the Hulk, one of the best Todd McFarlane covers that he's ever done on the Amazing Spider-Man title. So straight off the heels of Zapp, I decided to go and head out to the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Now, I don't visit this shop often, only for the fact they do not have a lot of back issues. They carry a lot of modern, a lot of new books, a lot of trade paperbacks, which is great, but every once in a while, I like to stop in this shop and see what they have. And today, it was not a disappointment. They had a bunch of new wall books that they had displayed. We're talking about 2 copies of Giant Size X-Men 1, an ASM 194, an X-Men 50, a bunch of huge keys, X-Men 266. As you guys can see here, a bunch of different Spider-Man keys, one of them signed by the great John Romita. Now, I looked all over the shop for a while, but I wasn't comfortable enough asking them to film inside the store, considering they do not know me and aren't familiar with what I do. With that said, they had a bunch of keys I was interested in, and I was definitely looking around. They had a Marvel Spotlight 5, a Werewolf by Night number 32. They also had a Marvel Spotlight 2, the first appearance of the Werewolf. So they had a ton of great keys, but like I said, I was only able to grab a couple of pictures. But in the end, a lot of the books I think are a little bit overpriced. They specialize in raw books, which I like. You guys know that. They don't carry any CGC books, which is okay by me. But like I said, a lot of the books were overpriced for my liking. With that said, I almost made an offer on that Amazing Spider-Man number 39 signed by John Romita, but it was just a little bit too low grade for me, and the asking price was a little much. So I decided to go ahead and leave that shop without picking up anything. And my last shop of the day was A&S Comics in Teaneck, New Jersey. Now, I have been to this shop multiple times. However, it's a little bit far from me, so I don't always get there as often as I should. But as you guys can see on the wall, they had some awesome keys. We're talking about Silver and Bronze Age Amazing Spider-Man, a great mix of Silver Age all the way to Copper Age books. And it looks like they just got in a bunch of Silver and Golden Age Batman. Their wall was actually very impressive. I've been there a bunch, like I said before, and I'd never seen the amount of keys that they had this time around. They had a great first appearance of the Silver Age Scarecrow, some fantastic Amazing Spider-Man J. Scott Campbell covers, A couple of copies of the first appearance of Damian Wayne. You guys know I love this book, The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. A classic X-Men mag signed by the great Chris Claremont. The first appearance of Batman Beyond, as well as the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul. They also had a bunch of great knickknacks, as you guys can see. Some amazing posters. Check out this one of the Amazing Spider-Man. And not to mention this classic cover by the great Neil Adams, Batman number 251. If you guys are ever in the Teaneck, New Jersey area, you have to stop by this shop. It's great for children and adults alone. So now for the pickups. I picked up a bunch of stuff I was not expecting to go ahead and grab, but that's the great part of the hunt, right? That's why we go to these LCSs, to try to find stuff we would normally not buy. The first thing I was actually able to pick up was this great trade paperback of the Eastman and Laird's TMNT IDW run in the beginning. This is the Color Classics version, so they had one copy left of this, so I decided to go ahead and grab it. And it was cheap. It was only $29.99, so why not? You guys know right now I am buying a lot of trade paperback books, and if you can get them for a great deal like this one was, you always have to do it. That's a great way and a cheap way to go ahead and buy great storylines if you want to read them. So that I actually got from Zapp Comics, and I want to show you guys what else I picked up from them. I told you guys I wasn't able to film that Spawn run, but they had a bunch of great Spawn covers that I was able to snag for ridiculously cheap prices, including this Spawn number 298, this great homage to Amazing Spider-Man 298. Now, if you guys don't know, Amazing Spider-Man 298 was Todd McFarlane's first artwork on the Amazing Spider-Man run, and for him to homage that was just a great throwback to when he took on that title. I picked this book up for $8, believe it or not. The next Spawn book I was able to pick up was this great homage to Amazing Spider-Man number 301. If you guys don't know, they had a bunch of amazing homages during that early Spawn run. We're talking about books from The Dark Knight Returns, Amazing Fantasy 15, The Walking Dead, and not to mention this one right here. I picked this book up for $4, believe it or not. So anytime you can get a great Todd cover for cheap, we're talking anything under $10, I'm always a buyer of it if you do not have it already in the collection. So when we talk about Spawn, we have to talk about some of the great artwork by Todd McFarlane on the early issues of that run. And I gotta tell you, there's none much better than this one. It is a copy of Spawn number 34 featuring the Clown. You guys know who he is. This is one of his best works on that run, and to me, when I saw it for cheap, $4, I had to go ahead and snatch it up. And the last book I was able to actually pick up from Zapp Comics was a wall book that you guys did not see in the video. When I was there last time, I could not believe how cheap this book was, but the fact that it was still there this time, I decided to go ahead and pick it up. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 135. This is, of course, the second appearance of the Punisher. I know some people are calling it the third appearance now. Regardless, this book is an absolute steal. One of the best covers from the Bronze Age by the great John Romita Sr. and Gil Kane. This book is around a 4.0 to a 4.5, and it will be for sale sooner rather than later. So if you are interested in this book, you can go ahead and DM me on Instagram or go ahead and email me. My email is in the description of every video that I put out. But either way, a classic cover that is pretty cheap if you guys want to own it. So like I said earlier in this video, I decided to not pick up anything from the Joker's Child. I just didn't want to spend the money for the books that they had and the money that they're asking for those books. Great shop though, nonetheless. So we're going to head over to A&S Comics now and what I actually picked up from them. They had a great Amazing Spider-Man number 9 there that I actually thought about for a really long time, but I just thought right now I didn't want to go ahead and spend the amount of money on that book, and I thought it was a tad overpriced. But other than that, they had a lot of great keys and I almost pulled the trigger on a bunch of them. However, there were two books as I was looking around ready to leave that I could not pass up. The first one was this. It is a copy of Detective Comics number 400, the first appearance of the Man-Bat. I could not believe what they had this book priced. Now, it is a mid-grade copy of this book, anywhere from a 4 to a 5.0, I'm going to call it. The main thing in this book is in the bottom left-hand corner of this book, there actually is a peace out on the cover. Other than that, this book looks pretty good and definitely could benefit from a clean and press. I got a really great deal on this book. So again, another book that is going to be for sale at some point. So if you are interested, make sure you're contacting me sooner rather than later. And the other book I picked up from him was a book I'd actually never seen in person before at a shop. It is a low-grade book, but the price I got it for was actually remarkable. I decided to go ahead and pick it up, and it is a copy of Batman number 68. It is a Golden Age book and a classic two-face cover. I know you guys have seen this one before. This one is pretty beat up. It is definitely a 0.5. The cover is totally detached, and you can see a bunch of pieces are missing from the front cover. But what is there, of course, is Two-Face himself, a classic classic Two-Face Golden Age cover. For the amount I paid for this book, I thought it was an absolute steal. Another book that may be for sale at some point down the road, so if you are interested, make sure you reach out. This was a fun one for this weekend. I actually enjoyed going to all these 3 shops in one day. It was definitely a hoot. I always enjoy going on Comic Cons, talking to people, see what books they have, what books they like, stuff like that. I'm not always a big modern collector, so when I'm able to go to shops that have a bunch of back issues, that's really what I'm looking to do. Either way, guys, I hope you enjoyed this hunt. Hopefully next time you can come with me again. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.